Okay, today is 7th of August, and we come to another important sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 44, Chula Vedala Sutta, the shorter series of questions and answers. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then the lay follower Visakha went to the nun, Dhammadina, and after paying homage to her, he sat down at one side and asked her, sorry for a moment, this Dhammadina is supposed to be an Arahant, and according to the, according to the commentaries, I don't know whether it's reliable or not, and this Visakha is supposed to be an Anagamin, third fruition Arya, and also the former husband of Dhammadina. So he sat down and asked her, Lady, identity is said. What is called identity by the Blessed One? This identity, the Pali word is Sakkaya. Friend Visakha, these 5 aggregates of attachment are called identity by the Blessed One. That is, the material form aggregate of clinging, of attachment, the feeling aggregate of attachment, the perception aggregate of perception of attachment, the volition aggregate of attachment, and the consciousness aggregate of attachment. These 5 aggregates of attachment are called identity by the Blessed One. Saying, good lady, the lay follower Visakha delighted and rejoiced in the nun Dhammadina's words. Then he asked her a further question. Lady, origin of identity is said. What is called the origin of identity by the Blessed One? Friend Visakha, it is craving which brings renewal of being, is accompanied by delight and lust, and delights in this and that, that is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for being, and craving for non-being. This is called the origin of identity by the Blessed One. Lady, cessation of identity is said. What is called the cessation of identity by the Blessed One? Friend Visakha, it is the remainderless fading away and ceasing, the giving up, relinquishing, letting go, and rejecting of that same craving. This is called the cessation of identity by the Blessed One. Lady, the way leading to the cessation of identity, is said. What is called the way leading to the cessation of identity by the Blessed One? Friend Visakha, it is just this Noble Eightfold Path, that is, right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection, and right concentration. Lady, is that attachment the same as these 5 aggregates of attachment, or is the attachment something apart from the 5 aggregates of attachment? Friend Visakha, that attachment is neither the same as these 5 aggregates of attachment, nor is attachment something apart from the 5 aggregates of attachment. It is the desire and lust in regard to the 5 aggregates of attachment that is the attachment there. I'll stop here for a moment. So here they are talking about identity, Sakkaya. This identity means to identify oneself with the 5 aggregates, body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. And these 5 aggregates are basically also body and mind. And this body and mind, we generally, ordinary people, we take it to be I and mine. And this, when a person becomes an Arya, the lower stage is stream entry, the first path. When the person listens to the Dhamma and understands, he attains right view. And with that right view, that person becomes the lowest Arya, the first path attainer. But after that, that person has to put in more effort to learn the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma. And then after some time, that wisdom will ripen, and the path will turn to fruit, and that person becomes the first fruit attainer, Sotapanna. When that person attains the first fruit, three fetters are eliminated, and one of them is Sakkaya Ditthi, identity view. So a normal person will identify himself with the five aggregates, but Sotapanna, he sees that these five aggregates are impermanent and a source of suffering. So he does not identify himself with the five aggregates, although he still has a self, but that self is not attached to this, is not linked to these five aggregates. So the origin of this identity is craving. Craving is the cause of the round of rebirths, and the cessation of identity is the remainderless fading away of this same craving. And this, okay, we continue. Lady, how does identity view come to be? Here, friend Visakha, an untaught ordinary person, a Putujana, who has no regard for noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, who has no regard for true men and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, regards material form or body as self, or self as possessed of material form, or material form as in the self, or self as in the material form. Similarly, he regards feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, all the five aggregates as the self, or the self as possessed of these aggregates, or the aggregates as in the self, or the self as in these five aggregates. That is how identity view comes to be. Lady, how does identity view come not to be? Here, friend Visakha, a well-taught noble disciple who has regard for noble ones and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who has regard for true men and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, does not regard material form as self, or self as possessed of material form, or material form as in self, or self as in the material form. Similarly, he does not regard feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as the self, or self as in these five aggregates, or these five aggregates as in the self, or self as in the five aggregates. That is how personality, this identity view does not come to be. This identity view ceases when the ardent disciple, he does not regard the five aggregates as the self, or as belonging to the self, or as being in the self, or the self as being inside these five aggregates. So he does not identify himself with the five aggregates. Lady, what is the Noble Eightfold Path? Friend Visakha, it is just this Noble Eightfold Path, that is right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection, and right concentration. Lady, is the Noble Eightfold Path conditioned or unconditioned? Friend Visakha, the Noble Eightfold Path is conditioned. Lady, are the three aggregates included by the Noble Eightfold Path, or is the Noble Eightfold Path included by the three aggregates? The three aggregates are not included by the Noble Eightfold Path, friend Visakha, but the Noble Eightfold Path is included by the three aggregates. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These states are included in the aggregate of virtue or moral conduct, sila. Right effort, right recollection, and right concentration. These states are included in the aggregate of concentration, samadhi. Right view and right thoughts. These states are included in the aggregate of wisdom, panya. Lady, what is concentration? What is the, here it says, basis of concentration? What is the equipment of concentration? What is the development of concentration? Unification of mind, friend Visakha, is concentration. The 4 Satipatthanas are the basis of concentration. The 4 right efforts are the equipment of concentration. The repetition, development, and cultivation of these same states is the development of concentration therein. Stop for a moment. This concentration is samadhi. Here it says, what is the basis of concentration? This word basis, the Pali is nimitta. You can say also it is the sign. What is the sign of concentration? Samadhi nimitta. What is the sign of concentration? And it says the 4 Satipatthana. I would translate the Satipatthana as intense states of recollection or intense states of mindfulness are the sign of concentration. So these 4 Satipatthanas are the sign of concentration. In other words, when you have concentration, these 4 Satipatthanas are automatic. It is the sign of concentration. But if you say the 4 Satipatthanas are the basis of concentration, it means that to attain concentration, you have to practice the 4 Satipatthanas. This is also correct because in the Satipatthana Sangyutta, there is a sutta I mentioned before concerning the cook who is supposed to be to know the taste of his master. So in that sutta, it is said that if you practice the 4 Satipatthanas, the 4 intense states of recollection, it must ultimately result in concentration. It must lead to concentration, the jhanas. So you can also say the 4 Satipatthanas are the basis of concentration, or you can say it's the sign of concentration. But normally the word nimitta is used as the sign. The 4 right kinds of the four right efforts, the 4 right kinds of striving are the equipment of concentration. That means you have to use these 4 right efforts to attain concentration. Lady, how many volitions are there? This word volition is sankhara. Here is translated as formations, but I prefer the word volition. Generally, sankhara is volition. There are these 3 volitions, friend Visakha: the bodily volition, the verbal volition, and the mental volition. But lady, what is this bodily volition? Is kaya sankhara. Verbal volition is vachi sankhara. Mental volition is chitta sankhara. But lady, what is the bodily volition? What is the verbal volition? What is the mental volition? In breathing and out breathing, friend Visakha, are the bodily volition. Applied thought and sustained thought are the verbal volition. Perception and feeling are the mental volition. But lady, why are in breathing and out breathing the bodily volition? Why are applied thought and sustained thought the verbal volition? Why are perception and feeling the mental volition? Friend Visakha, in breathing and out breathing are bodily. These states are bound up with the body. That is why in breathing and out breathing are the bodily volition. First one applies thought and sustains thought, and subsequently one breaks out into speech. That is why applied thought and sustained thought are the verbal volition. Perception and feeling are mental. These states are bound up with the mind. That is why perception and feeling are the mental volition. Let's stop here for a moment. This word volition is intention. Volition, the will. So for the body to function, the intention must be there. The intention of the body for the body to function, for the body to survive, to live. So for the body to survive, to live, you need breathing. Breathing is a condition to keep the body alive. So this breathing is the bodily volition. And verbal volition is the intention to speak. Before you can speak, the intention is this applied thought and sustained thought, because you must think first. Once you have the thought, then it breaks out into speech. That's why thoughts are the verbal volition. Perception and feeling are the mental volition. Before your mind can work, the perception and feeling must be there. Perception and feeling, means consciousness. Consciousness, in other words, the mind must activate. Then only the mind can work. That's why these, you can see here, these three, the word volition is quite apt, quite correct. Yeah. Lady, how does the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling come to be? Friend Visakha, when a monk is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, it does not occur to him, I shall attain the cessation of perception and feeling, or I am attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, or I have attained the cessation of perception and feeling, but rather his mind has previously been developed in such a way that it leads him to that state. Lady, when a monk is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, which state sees first in him? The bodily volition, the verbal volition, or the mental volition? Friend Visakha, when a monk is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, first the verbal volition ceases, then the bodily volition, then the mental volition. Stop here for a moment. When a monk is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, this is the cessation of consciousness. In other words, the six consciousness shuts down, and he appears to be a dead person. In other words, the body and mind is totally shut down, just like your computer. But it has to go in three stages. First, the verbal volition ceases. Verbal volition is the thinking, ceases. Then the bodily volition, the breathing ceases. And then the mental volition, the perception and feeling or consciousness ceases, shuts down. But in the Suttas, we know that this, when verbal volition ceases, that means the thought ceases. That is the state of the second jhana. In the first jhana, you still have vitaka and vichara, applied and sustained thought. But in the second jhana, this thinking ceases. That's why second jhana is called the state of the Aryan silence. The mind stops chattering. And then the bodily volition ceasing is the breath ceasing. And the breath ceasing is the fourth jhana. And then the mental formation ceasing is the perception and feeling and perception ceasing. That is Nirodha Samapatti. You can call it the highest state of concentration. So when the body and mind shuts down, it goes in this, it has to go in that order. You have to attain the second jhana, then the fourth jhana, then only attain this cessation. This cessation is also similar to parinibbana. That is why if we look into the sutta on the Maha Parinibbana, how the Buddha entered Nibbana, he had to go through these stages. He had to go to the second jhana, fourth jhana. Then from there he entered this cessation, entered Parinibbana. Lady, how does emergence from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling come to be? Friend Visakha, when a monk is emerging from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, it does not occur to him, I shall emerge from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, or I am emerging from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, or I have emerged from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling. But rather his mind has previously been developed in such a way that it leads him to that state. Lady, when a monk is emerging from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, which states arise first in him? The bodily volition, the verbal volition, or the mental volition? Friend Visakha, when a monk is emerging from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, first the mental volition arises, then the bodily volition, then the verbal volition. Stop here for a moment. So when a monk emerges from this nirodha samapatti, this state of cessation of perception and feeling, first the mind has to commence working again. Consciousness must return, and after consciousness returns, and then the breathing starts. This breathing, that means he emerges from the cessation, then emerges from the fourth jhana, then emerges from the second jhana, the volition, the verbal volition. So in the reverse order. Lady, when a monk has emerged from the attainment of cessation of perception and feeling, how many kinds of contact touch him? Friend Visakha, when a monk has emerged from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, 3 kinds of contact touch him: voidness contact, signless contact, desireless contact. Lady, when a monk has emerged from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, to what does his mind incline? To what does it lean? To what does it tend? Friend Visakha, when the monk has emerged from the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling, his mind inclines to seclusion, leans to seclusion, tends to seclusion. Stop here for a moment. So, when this monk has attained this cessation of perception and feeling, he comes out of it, he should become an arahant. And then, after that, he only wants to be in seclusion because that state is so pleasant. He tends to want to meditate and go into that state. He will want to be aloof from society. In fact, I would say even if a person has attained the fourth jhana, the state is so deep and peaceful that after that also he will not want to mix with society. He will tend to go into seclusion also. Lady, how many kinds of feeling are there? Friend Visakha, there are 3 kinds of feeling: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neither painful nor pleasant feeling. But lady, what is pleasant feeling? What is painful feeling? What is neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, whatever is felt bodily or mentally as pleasing and soothing is pleasant feeling. Whatever is felt bodily or mentally as painful and hurting is painful feeling. Whatever is felt bodily or mentally as neither soothing nor hurting is neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Lady, what is pleasant and what is painful in regard to pleasant feeling? What is painful and what is pleasant in regard to painful feeling? What is pleasant and what is painful in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, pleasant feeling is pleasant when it persists and painful when it changes. Painful feeling is painful when it persists and pleasant when it changes. Neither painful nor pleasant feeling is pleasant when there is knowledge of it, and painful when there is no knowledge of it. Stop here for a moment. So, because feelings are impermanent, they keep changing. So, if you have pleasant feeling, if it persists, then we feel pleasant. But the moment it disappears, then it is painful. It is painful, and vice versa. And also, when we have this equanimous state, we are aware of it, then it is pleasant. But if you are not aware of it, then you maybe feel bored. Lady, what underlying tendency underlies pleasant feeling? What underlying tendency underlies painful feeling? What underlying tendency underlies neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, the underlying tendency to lust underlies pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion underlies painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance underlies neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Lady, does the underlying tendency to lust underlie all pleasant feeling? Does the underlying tendency to aversion underlie all painful feeling? Does the underlying tendency to ignorance underlie all neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, the underlying tendency to lust does not underlie all pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion does not underlie all painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance does not underlie all neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Lady, what should be abandoned in regard to pleasant feeling? What should be abandoned in regard to painful feeling? What should be abandoned in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, the underlying tendency to lust should be abandoned in regard to pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion should be abandoned in regard to painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance should be abandoned in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Lady, does the underlying tendency to lust have to be abandoned in regard to all pleasant feeling? Does the underlying tendency to aversion have to be abandoned in regard to all painful feeling? Does the underlying tendency to ignorance have to be abandoned in regard to all neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, the underlying tendency to lust does not have to be abandoned in regard to all pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion does not have to be abandoned in regard to all painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance does not have to be abandoned in regard to all neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Here, friend Visakha, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a monk enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with delight and pleasure born of seclusion. With that, he abandons lust, and the underlying tendency to lust does not underlie that. Here a monk considers thus: when shall I enter upon and abide in that base that the noble ones now enter upon and abide in? In one who thus generates a longing for the supreme liberation, grief arises with that longing as condition. With that, he abandons aversion, and the underlying tendency to aversion does not underlie that. Here, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a monk enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and perfect purity of mindfulness and equanimity. With that, he abandons ignorance, and the underlying tendency to ignorance does not underlie that. Let's stop here for a moment. So, when we experience pleasant feelings, worldly pleasant feelings, that means worldly pleasant feelings arise because of seeing a beautiful form, or hearing a beautiful sound, or smelling a nice odor, or tasting good food, or having a pleasant touch. So that type of worldly pleasures, when we experience it, the underlying tendency to lust arises. And vice versa, if we get pain because of contact at the six doors, then aversion arises. We feel repelled by the pain. But when this neither painful nor pleasant feeling arises, we tend to be ignorant of it. However, in the case of meditative absorption in the jhanas, it is different. Here it's very clear. When a monk enters the first jhana, he abandons lust, and even the underlying tendency to lust is not there, because the mind is so strong and also very clear. So sometimes some people, they try to discourage people from entering the jhanas or enjoying the bliss of jhana, because they say you can be attached to it. But here you can see very clearly that when you attain the jhanas, there is not the tendency to lust for it. So you cannot say of the jhanas as what you say of the worldly pleasures. Also, when you have the longing for liberation, you grieve for liberation. But in that type of grief, there is no aversion for it, because you know it is something good. And when a person attains the fourth jhana, the mind is, there is perfect purity of sati and upekkha, perfect purity of mindfulness or recollection, and equanimity, and the mind also is so clear and strong that the mind is so clear, there's no ignorance, and ignorance also does not underlie that. Lady, what is the counterpart of pleasant feeling? This Pali word counterpart, patibhaga, is similar or resemblance. Here it says counterpart. What is the counterpart of pleasant feeling? Friend Visakha, a painful feeling is the counterpart of pleasant feeling. What is the counterpart of painful feeling? Pleasant feeling is the counterpart of painful feeling. What is the counterpart of neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Ignorance is the counterpart of neither painful nor pleasant feeling. What is the counterpart of ignorance? True knowledge is the counterpart of ignorance. What is the counterpart of true knowledge? Deliverance is the counterpart of true knowledge. What is the counterpart of deliverance? Nibbana is the counterpart of deliverance. Lady, what is the counterpart of Nibbana? Friend Visakha, you have pushed this line of questioning too far. You are not able to grasp the limit to questions. For the holy life, friend Visakha, merges in Nibbana, culminates in Nibbana, ends in Nibbana. If you wish, friend Visakha, go to the Blessed One and ask him about the meaning of this. As the Blessed One explains it to you, so you should remember it. Then the lay follower Visakha, having delighted and rejoiced in the nun Dhammadina's words, rose from his seat, and after paying homage to her, keeping her on his right, he went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and told the Blessed One his entire conversation with the nun Dhammadina. When he had finished, the Blessed One told him, the nun Dhammadina is wise, Visakha. The nun Dhammadina has great wisdom. If you had asked me the meaning of this, I would have explained it to you in the same way that the nun Dhammadina has explained it. Such is its meaning, so you should remember it. That is what the Blessed One said. The lay follower Visakha was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this is another very important sutta. There are many important things here. First it talks about identity view, Sakkaya Ditthi, how it comes about. It comes about when we identify ourselves with the five aggregates of attachment, body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. And then it talks about the three volitions, the bodily volition, verbal volition, and mental volition, and how you have to go through these different states to attain the highest, which is the cessation of perception and feeling, the highest attainment. And then the underlying tendencies for worldly pleasures that we enjoy, there is a tendency to lust for it, but not in the case of the jhanas. Okay, now we come to Sutta 45, Chula Dhammas Samadhana Sutta, Chula Dhamma Samadhana Sutta, the shorter discourse on ways of undertaking things. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anatta Pindika's park. There he addressed the monks thus, "Monks, Venerable Sir," they replied. The Blessed One said this, "Monks, there are four ways of undertaking things. What are the four? There is a way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. There is a way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. There is a way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. There is a way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure." What, monks, is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain? Monks, there are certain recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and view is this: there is no harm in sensual pleasures. They take to gulping down sensual pleasures and divert themselves with women wanderers who wear their hair bound in a top knot. They say thus, "What future fear do these good recluses and Brahmins see in sensual pleasures when they speak of abandoning sensual pleasures and describe the full understanding of sensual pleasures? Pleasant is the touch of this woman wanderer's tender, soft, downy arm." Thus they take to gulping down sensual pleasures, and having done so, on the dissolution of the body after death, they reappear in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. There they feel painful, racking, piercing feelings. They say thus, "This is the future fear those good recluses and Brahmins saw in sensual pleasures when they spoke of abandoning sensual pleasures and described the full understanding of sensual pleasures. For it is by reason of sensual pleasures, owing to sensual pleasures, that we are now feeling painful, racking, piercing feelings. Monks, suppose that in the last month of the hot season, a Maluva creeper pot burst open and a Maluva creeper seed fell at the foot of a sala tree. Then a deity living in that tree became fearful, perturbed and frightened. But the deity's friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives, garden deities, park deities, tree deities, and deities inhabiting medicinal herbs, grass, and forest monarch trees, gathered together and reassured that deity thus, "Have no fear, sir, have no fear. Perhaps a peacock will swallow the Maluva creeper seed, or a wild animal will eat it, or a forest fire will burn it, or a woodsman will carry it off, or white ants will devour it, or it may not even be fertile." But no peacock swallowed that seed, no wild animal ate it, no forest fire burned it, no woodsman carried it off, no white ants devoured it. And it was in fact fertile. Then, being moistened by rain from a rain-bearing cloud, the seed in due course sprouted, and the Maluva creeper's tender, soft, downy tendril wound itself around that sala tree. Then the deity living in the sala tree thought, "What future fear did my friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives, etc., see in that Maluva creeper seed when they gathered together and reassured me as they did? Pleasant is the touch of this Maluva creeper's tender, soft, downy tendril." Then the creeper enfolded the sala tree, made a canopy over it, draped a curtain all around it, and split the main branches of the tree. The deity who lived in the tree then realized, this is the future fear they saw in that Maluva creeper seed. Because of that Maluva creeper seed, I am now feeling painful, racking, piercing feelings. So too, monks, there are certain recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and view is this: there is no harm in sensual pleasures, etc. They say thus, this is the future fear that those good recluses and Brahmins saw in sensual pleasures, that we are now feeling painful, racking, piercing feelings. This is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. Stop here for a moment. So here, these recluses, even though they have been warned by others about the danger of sensual pleasures, they are not careful, so they just enjoy themselves first. And they think we worry about things to come later. And then when they fall into hell, the Buddha says when beings fall into hell, they realize the reason why they are in hell and suffering. Then only they realize all the pleasants, all the sensual pleasures they enjoyed now have brought them to hell. I was just telling this Chia this morning, the world works in a certain way. And we don't have to question why it works in that way. Just like in Malaysia, you're asked to drive on the left side of the road. There's no point for you to argue, why should I drive on the left side of the road? In America, they drive on the right side of the road. Right? The law says like this, you got to understand. Then if you follow the law, you won't get into problems. So in the same way, the world works in a certain way. To some people, it may be strange. Why I enjoy sensual pleasures only must go to hell? But that's the way the world works. You enjoy sensual pleasures in a way that is not supposed to be, and then you have to pay for it. Why you have to suffer? That's no need to ask. I just have to understand how the way the world works, how Mother Nature works, or how God works, if you like, and just follow. That's why the Buddha, having become enlightened, he knows exactly how things go in the world, the laws that govern the world, and he's trying to tell us, having known these laws, that giving us the warning, the way the world works like this, so you better be careful. Just like these recluses, they don't see the future. That's a problem. A lot of people, we don't have the foresight. We don't see the future result. So we are careless. But if you really know what you're going to get in the future, then be very careful. So in the same with this tree spirit, when the seed of the creeper fell near, and then a lot of other deities warned him. I thought it's not important, but later, when the whole tree starts breaking down, then only he realized. And what monks is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Here, monks, someone goes naked, rejecting conventions, licking his hands, not coming when asked, not stopping when asked. This then here follows a list of all the unbeneficial ascetic practices that were practiced by ascetics in India. And this is the same as Sutta number 12 that we heard earlier. So there's a long list of ascetic practices. He dwells pursuing the practice of bathing in water 3 times daily, including the evening. Thus, in such a variety of ways, he dwells pursuing the practice of tormenting and mortifying the body. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. This is called the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Let's stop here for a moment. So this refers to all the unbeneficial ascetic practices in India. Like I think last year we saw in the newspaper there's one ascetic used to hold up his hand and he refused to bring down his hand. Year after year he holds up his hand like that. After more than 10 years it's become stiff and he cannot bring it down anymore. And then, not only that, gives him a lot of pain, I think. Just like somebody who's hunchback, if you allow yourself to be careless, then you get a hunchback. You're going to get a pain after that, all the rest of your life. So here the Buddha is talking about these people who have wrong view, not understanding karma vipaka. So they undertake all these unbeneficial practices and not keeping the good practices like keeping sila, moral conduct and all that. And then they suffer now and in the future they suffer again. And what monks is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Here, monks, someone by nature has strong lust and he constantly experiences pain and grief born of lust. By nature he has strong hatred and he constantly experiences pain and grief born of hatred. By nature he has strong delusion and he constantly experiences pain and grief born of delusion. Yet in pain and grief, weeping with tearful face, he leads the perfect and pure holy life. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. This is called the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Stop here for a moment. So this refers to a monk on the spiritual path who has strong greed, hatred and delusion. So as he practices the holy life, he has to keep so many precepts, and because of his lust, hatred and delusion, he is suffering and doesn't get enough sleep and doesn't get to enjoy all the good food that he used to enjoy and all that. So, but in spite of all that, he grits his teeth and bears it, even though he weeps at times, and yet he continues to struggle, and then in the end, because he's practicing the right way, then he's reborn in the heavens, and there he's very happy. And what monks is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Here, monks, someone by nature does not have strong lust, and he does not constantly experience pain and grief born of lust. By nature, he does not have strong hate, and he does not constantly experience pain and grief born of hate. By nature, he does not have strong delusion, and he does not constantly experience pain and grief born of delusion. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana. With the stilling of applied and sustained thought, he enters upon and abides in the second jhana. With the fading away as well of delight, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, he enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. This is called the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. These monks are the four ways of undertaking things. This is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this last one, this monk who is on the spiritual path, he does not have strong lust, hatred, and delusion to bother him. So as he practices the holy life, he is very happy. And on top of that, he can attain the jhanas. And these jhanas are states of great bliss and happiness. So even in this very life, he is enjoying the spiritual path and very happy, experiencing happiness now. And then after that, because he has attained this deep meditative absorptions, he is born in the very high heavens, where he is blissed out for a very, very long time. So this is the fourth one. So these are the four ways of a spiritual path. One is careless fellow who enjoys himself now and suffers for it later. And then the second one, he tortures himself now and suffers now. And because of his wrong view, he's reborn in the woeful plains of rebirth and he suffers again. The third one is the sincere monk on the spiritual path, constantly bothered by his lust, hatred and delusion, and he's suffering all through that spiritual path. Yet he grits his teeth and bears it, and because of his right effort, eventually he's reborn in heaven, where he's happy for a long time. And the fourth one is the best, the person who does not have much lust, hatred and delusion to bother him, and on top of that he can attain the jhanas, which bring him to a happy destination of rebirth, where he stays for an extremely long time. Sutta number 46, Maha Dhamma Samadhana Sutta, the greater discourse on ways of undertaking things. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the monks thus, "Monks, Venerable Sir," they replied. The Blessed One said, "Monks, for the most part, beings have this wish, desire and longing. If only unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things would diminish, and wished for, desired, agreeable things would increase. Yet although beings have this wish, desire and longing, unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things increase for them, and wished for, desired, agreeable things diminish. Now monks, what do you think is the reason for that?" Stop here for a moment. Most people, or practically all people, we want happiness, we want pleasure, we don't want pain and suffering. But for a lot of people, the pleasant side of life decreases and suffering increases. Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One. Have the Blessed One as their resort. It would be good if the Blessed One would explain the meaning of these words. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Then listen, monks, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Blessed One said, "Hear, monks, an untaught ordinary person who has no regard for noble ones, Aryans, and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, who has no regard for true men, and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, does not know what things should be cultivated and what things should not be cultivated. He does not know what things should be followed and what things should not be followed. Not knowing this, he cultivates things that should not be cultivated, and he does not cultivate things that should be cultivated. He follows things that should not be followed, and he does not follow things that should be followed. It is because he does this that unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things increase for him, and wished for, desired, agreeable things diminish. Why is that? That is what happens to one who does not see. The well-taught noble disciple who has regard for noble ones and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who has regard for true men and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, knows what things should be cultivated and what things should not be cultivated. He knows what things should be followed and what things should not be followed. Knowing this, he cultivates things that should be cultivated, and he does not cultivate things that should not be cultivated. He follows things that should be followed and does not follow things that should not be followed. It is because he does this that unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things diminish for him, and wished for, desired, agreeable things increase. Why is that? This is what happens to one who sees. Now stop here for a moment. So as we saw earlier in some other sutta, if we conduct ourselves according to Dhamma, then what we want we can get, and life is pleasant for us. But if we conduct ourselves not according to Dhamma, we go against Dhamma, we go against the law of the world, then we will suffer for it. Monks, there are 4 ways of undertaking things. What are the 4? There is a way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. There is a way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. There is a way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. There is a way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Now monks, one who is ignorant, not knowing this way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain, does not understand as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Not knowing it, not understanding it as it actually is, the ignorant one cultivates it and does not avoid it. Because he does so, unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things increase for him, and wished for, desired, agreeable things diminish. Why is that? That is what happens to one who does not see. Now monks, one who is ignorant, not knowing this way of undertaking things, that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain, does not understand it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. Not knowing it, not understanding it as it actually is, the ignorant one cultivates it and does not avoid it. Because he does so, unwished for things increase for him and wished for things diminish. Why is that? That is what happens to one who does not see. Now monks, one who is ignorant, not knowing this way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure, does not understand it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Not knowing it, not understanding it as it actually is, the ignorant one does not cultivate it but avoids it. Because he does so, unwished for things increase for him and wished for things diminish. Why is that? That is what happens to one who does not see. Now monks, one who is ignorant, not knowing the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure, does not understand as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Not knowing it, not understanding it as it actually is, the ignorant one does not cultivate it but avoids it. Because he does so, unwished for things increase for him and wished for things diminish. Why is that? That is what happens to one who does not see. Now monks, one who is wise, knowing this way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain, understands it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Knowing it, understanding it as it actually is, the wise one does not cultivate it but avoids it. Because he does so, unwished for, undesired, disagreeable things diminish for him, and wished for, desired, agreeable things increase. Why is that? That is what happens to one who sees. Now monks, one who is wise, knowing this way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain, understands it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. Knowing it, understanding it as it actually is, the wise one does not cultivate it but avoids it. Because he does so, unwished for things diminish for him and wished for things increase. Why is that? that is what happens to one who sees. Now monks, one who is wise, knowing this way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure, understands it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Knowing it, understanding it as it actually is, the wise one does not avoid it, but cultivates it. Because he does so, unwished for things diminish for him and wished for things increase. Why is that? That is what happens to one who sees. Now monks, one who is wise, knowing this way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure, understands it as it actually is thus. This way of undertaking things is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Knowing it, understanding it as it actually is, the wise one does not avoid it, but cultivates it. Because he does so, unwished for things diminish for him, and wished for things increase. Why is that? That is what happens to one who sees. What monks is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. I stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is talking about the wise man and the foolish fellow. The foolish man, he avoids things that result in happiness, and he follows the path that ends in suffering. Whereas the wise person is the opposite. If he knows you do something, it results in suffering, he will avoid it. And if you do something, it results in happiness, then he practices it, even though it's difficult. What monks is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Here monks, someone in pain and grief kills living beings, and he experiences pain and grief that have killing of living beings as condition. In pain and grief, he takes what is not given, misconducts himself in sensual pleasures, speaks falsehood, speaks maliciously, speaks harshly, gossips, is covetous, has a mind of ill will, holds wrong view, and he experiences pain and grief that has wrong view as condition. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. This is called the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Stop here for a moment. So here, this person, he's in a painful situation. For example, he's in a very poor condition, and for example, living in a slum or something, in a very poor country, and on top of that, he misconducts himself. He does the 10 evil karmas, 10 evil actions that will bring him to a painful destination of rebirth. So now he's suffering, and in the future he will suffer again. What monks is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. Here monks, someone in pleasure and joy kills living beings, and he experiences pleasure and joy that have killing of living beings as condition. In pleasure and joy, he takes what is not given, holds wrong view, etc. And he experiences pleasure and joy with that as condition. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. This is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. I'll stop here for a moment. This is the converse. Somebody born into a very rich situation where he can enjoy life, and he's always happy, and he does not keep the precepts. He goes hunting, and then just for the fun of it, he steals and cheats people and all these things. And he commits the 10 evil karmas, and after that he's reborn in an unhappy destination where he suffers. So now he's having a good life, but in the future he suffers because he does the 10 evil karmas. What monks is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Here monks, someone in pain and grief abstains from killing living beings. He experiences pain and grief that have abstention from killing beings as condition. In pain and grief, he abstains from taking what is not given, from misconduct in sensual pleasures, from speaking falsehood, from speaking maliciously, from speaking harshly, from gossiping. He is not covetous, he does not have a mind of ill will. He holds right view, and he experiences pain and grief with those as condition. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. This is called the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. I stop here for a moment. So here you can think of, for example, a person born under very poor circumstances, and he is tempted to follow his friends in killing, maybe hunting, and cheating people and all these things. But because he has a conscience, and he feels all this is wrong, so he refuses to do it. But because he refuses to do all these things, he suffers for it. So, for example, people ostracize him and look down on him and all this. But in the future, he's reborn in a good destination. What monks is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Here, monks, someone in pleasure and joy abstains from killing living beings, and he experiences pleasure and joy that have abstention from killing living beings as condition. In pleasure and joy, he abstains from taking what is not given, etc., etc. And he experiences pleasure and joy with that as condition. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. This is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. So this last one can be, for example, a person born under in very rich circumstances where he has a very good life, and he is enjoying life now. But because he has learned the Dhamma, so he conducts himself properly. He abstains from the 10 evil karmas. And then after death, he is reborn in a happy destination and is happy again. Monks, suppose there were a bitter gourd mixed with poison, and a man came who wanted to live, not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoil from pain. And they told him, "Good man, this bitter gourd is mixed with poison. Drink from it if you want. As you drink from it, its color, smell, and taste will not agree with you, and after drinking from it, you will come to death or deadly suffering." And he drank from it without reflecting, and did not relinquish it. As he drank from it, its color, smell, and taste did not agree with him, and after drinking from it, he came to death or deadly suffering. Similar to that, I say, is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pain. Suppose there were a bronze cup of beverage possessing a good color, smell, and taste, but it was mixed with poison, and a man came who wanted to live, not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoil from pain. And they told him, "Good man, this bronze cup of beverage possesses a good color, smell, and taste, but it is mixed with poison. Drink from it if you want. As you drink from it, its color, smell, and taste will agree with you, but after drinking from it, you will come to death or deadly suffering." Then he drank from it without reflecting, and he did not relinquish it. As he drank from it, its color, smell, and taste agreed with him, but after drinking from it, he came to death or deadly suffering. Similar to that, I say, is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pain. I stop here for a moment. So here, the first example is this drink is not pleasant to drink, but this... And then also he's told that it's mixed with poison. But this man is blur. He's not thinking properly. And bodo, he drinks the thing. And he's suffering now. And then after it's an unpleasant taste. And after that he suffers again. Whereas the second one is a very pleasant drink. You think of the best drink you can get, extremely delightful and of a very pleasant aroma, etc. Something like Starbucks. But it is mixed with poison. So and this fellow also a bit blur and greedy. So he drinks it, enjoys it now, but after that he suffers for it. This is Like a lot of people in life, we want to enjoy now. We don't think of the consequences because most people are quite blur in the mind. So we enjoy now and pay for it later. Suppose there were fermented urine mixed with various medicines, and a man came sick with jaundice, and they told him, "Good man, this fermented urine is mixed with various medicines. Drink from it if you want. As you drink from it, its color, smell, and taste will not agree with you, but after drinking from it, you will be well." Then he drank from it after reflecting and did not relinquish it. As he drank from it, its colors, taste, and smell did not agree with him, but after drinking from it, he became well. Similar to that, I say, is the way of undertaking things that is painful now and ripens in the future as pleasure. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, the Buddha is telling us, if you get jaundice, you drink fermented urine. That's good medicine. So this guy, he knows that this medicine is not pleasant to the taste, but because it's good for him, even though it's not pleasant, he drinks it, and then he is well after that. Suppose there were curd, honey, ghee, and molasses mixed together, and a man with dysentery came, and they told him, "Good man, this is curd, honey, ghee, and molasses mixed together. Drink from it if you want. As you drink from it, its color, smell, and taste will agree with you, and after drinking from it, you will be well." Then he drank from it after reflecting, and did not relinquish it. As he drank from it, its color, taste, and smell agreed with him, and after drinking from it, he became well. Similar to that, I say, is the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. Just as in autumn, in the last month of the rainy season, when the sky is clear and cloudless, the sun rises above the earth, dispelling all darkness from space with its shining and beaming and radiance. So too, the way of undertaking things that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure dispels with its shining and beaming and radiance any other doctrines whatsoever of ordinary recluses and Brahmins. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. That's the end of the sutta. So here you get another advice from the Buddha. If you get dysentery, and you get this honey, ghee, and molasses, and mix it with this yogurt. Curd probably is yogurt, and it's a pleasant drink, and you'll be cured now of dysentery. So that's the end of this sutta. These are the ways of undertaking things. I think it's not so difficult to understand, so we can stop here. Anything to discuss?
I'd like to backtrack to last night's sutta 43 on the immeasurable difference of mind. And also would like to perhaps ask Bhante to explain. When a monk, or rather Arahant, destroys vagga, dosa, and moha, he attains the immeasurable deliverance. So just like to compare and say that an Arahant is the least selfish person in the world, and that with his immeasurable state of mind, that is Nibbana, it is boundless. So it wouldn't be intuitive for an Arahant to have metta, the form Brahma Vihara, naturally without much effort, because there are no more asaras.
Arahant, he naturally has these 4 Brahma Viharas to a certain extent. Loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. But if he does not cultivate this practice of radiating it out, then he would not be able to. He has to train himself, I think. Just like Arahant, some of them do not have psychic power, and because they have already cut off the ego, the self, they have no desire to cultivate psychic power. But if they wanted to, for example, the Buddha in the Suttas, it is said now that he became enlightened with the three knowledges on the night of enlightenment. But after he decided to teach the Dhamma in the world, I guess he would have developed all the other knowledges. So if there's a reason for him, a good reason for him to develop, then he would develop. If not, then he would not have this psychic power. This ability to radiate, I think he has to make the effort to radiate this loving kindness. Here, if a monk radiates it, then it can radiate immeasurably, pervading the all-encompassing world. But if he does not train himself, then I guess he will not be able to.
Meaning one day they have to be effective, they have to be in a meditative state, or?
I think normally they have to attain the jhanas and then come out of it and then radiate. But it is said that in the suttas that when the monk practices these states, Brahma Viharas, he can attain the arupas, and the arupas are measureless states of mind. I guess in those states, like the base of boundless space, base of boundless consciousness and all that. So maybe in those states, when he inclines his mind to metta or karuna, all these, probably he can radiate. I haven't come to the state, so I cannot confirm.
I read some books on Buddhism, and according to this book on Buddhism, they mentioned that there is no physical place as hell. So heaven and hell are already on this earth according to the way we live. So if we do good things, then we experience heaven. We do bad things, we experience hell on this earth itself. There is no such a physical place as hell.
That is the opinion of the author. It's not what the Buddha said. So nowadays there are a lot of things said in the name of Buddhism, which is not the Buddha's teachings. So you have to be very careful. That's why we rely on the original discourses of the Buddha to know actually what is the Buddha's teaching.